Hello and welcome back to the Atom 42 Excel Academy. Today we're going to be talking about common errors that we find in our Excel sheets all the time. So I'm just going to jump straight in. These are the errors we're going to be looking at because these are quite frequent. First one is a hash mark error, and that happens when a cell is trying to display something that is too big for the cell to show. So the result is actually too big for this cell. So even if I drag it a bit bigger, it's just continuing to show hash marks. The most common reason for this, there are other reasons, the most common reason is a formatting error. It means this cell is incorrectly formatted. So I'd recommend just changing the format. So at the moment that cell is formatted as a date, just try general, and that goes back to a number. It's most commonly due to the format of the cell. Next is an NA error. That means part of this formula can't be recognized. It's trying to pull in a part of the formula that's not available. So part of it is just not available. If you click on the cell and look at this yellow exclamation mark, it'll explain the value is actually not available to the formula or function. So a part of this formula is not resolving. So you could take this apart and see there's two formulas in here. There's an index match, so I could pull out the match part of it and see whether the error, where the error lies. So if I copy that out, that's where the error is. And so Zelda Falls isn't in database A3 to A77. So if I go look in database and look in column A, Zelda Falls is in there. I wonder why it isn't finding it. That's really common that we'll have trailing spaces or different punctuation or different spelling. So I can see the spelling is alright. When I click in, I can see there's some trailing spaces there. So there's two things that I can do. The first thing I can do just to see if that is the problem, if I put in two spaces, it finds it. One other thing that I can do is use the trim formula to remove this from any potential other problems we have. So if I insert a column equals trim, that will remove all spaces except for single spaces between words. Great. So that's now trimmed it. And now that can find it. Now it can find Zelda Falls without any spaces in it. I used the trim formula there, then pasted it back over the original column, but pasted it as values, so it didn't paste over the formula. Next one is a name error. That means it's related to text. That is misspelt text. Most commonly, this is a misspelt formula name. So again, if I hover over this exclamation mark, this formula contains unrecognized text. This is a really simple example, but some is spelt wrong. If you have a much longer, more complicated formula, just read through it and just make sure there's no additional spaces in there somewhere or extra punctuation that shouldn't be there. So if I spell sum correctly, that resolves properly. Next is div 0. If you actually read this, this is something is divided by 0, and Excel doesn't really know what to do when you ask it to divide by 0. So one of these numbers somewhere is a 0, and I could even pull it out just to see which one it is. This is how you should error check any long formulas. Just break them apart, and I can see that that is the 0 there. So if that's not doing anything helpful for me, so if I remove that, that'll give me the answer that I want. Finally, one that happens very common with pivot tables, but it does happen also with deleted cells. A reference error means the cell that it was referencing is no longer there. So if I hover over it, moving or deleting cells cause an invalid reference. This is a get pivot formula. So somewhere this pivot table is no longer showing the sum of new users, and I can't no longer see organic search. Maybe it used to show that, but the pivot table's been changed. Similarly, if you were referencing a cell or a column and that column got deleted, you would see a ref error. because Excel is trying to find something that's no longer there. If it's a ref in a normal formula, it means a cell has been deleted or a column's been deleted, and so that formula is now a bit useless. If it's a get pivot formula, that means the pivot table has changed. So what I'd recommend doing is typing a new get pivot formula by clicking equals, going to the pivot table, and clicking just sort of anywhere, because then we'll be able to compare what a good get pivot formula looks like against a bad one. So what's the difference? The only difference that I can see here between these two formulas is that it looks like the date's been added. The date is a new criteria. So the fact that this doesn't have a date criteria, it doesn't know where to look. So I wonder if we remove date from here, now we can see an answer, because date, when this get pivot formula was originally written, date wasn't a criteria. So when we remove it, as what's happened here, now the date is no longer a criteria, this formula has a ref error. This sheet will be available in the description below, including a little bit, just a very small bit of information on what's caused the error. If you're seeing more errors and you want us to do a video on a different type of error, then give us a shout at excel@atom42.co.uk and we'll be happy to help.